Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the world of Thetis. Today's episode, as we mentioned at the end of the previous one, will likely be a lore episode. And that's because we've got so many codex entries to catch up on, and I don't want to keep ignoring them because they'll get out of hand and there'll be too many. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the controls. I don't need to actually read that. Um, if we actually do end up having enough time, then I will continue the tower. We've got quest-related stuff, so the Scrolls of Bannistor. To align with the power of the Fade is but the first of many steps. Further is to align the mind to the Fade's rules and find the ties between the realm of dream and the realm of flesh. This is the true power of blood magic. The flesh and the mind are inseparable, and therein lies the power to influence and control minds. Below the text are indecipherable runes and stains of blood and ink. Wow. So, this is interesting. So you've got to try and connect the Fade to the realm of reality, the realm of flesh. That's the power of blood magic. The flesh and the mind are inseparable, and therein lies the power and the influence to control minds. Others may speak of the sanity or sanctity of the mind. To those who know the true power of the blood, this is foolishness. The mind is no more sacred than the knee, the small toe, or the ear. It is man's organ of reasoning, nothing more. And true reasoning requires connection to the rhythm of the blood and tireless pounding of life. Interpret this, and even the mind is yours to control. That's interesting. So this is a very interesting, like, scientific kind of, the brain is just an organ that can be used to control people's thinking, and it is a normal organ just like everything else. And if you can use blood magic, then blood is coursing through the brain, and therefore you can control the thoughts. Below the text is a diagram of a blood magic ritual in progress with no notation or description. So this is cool, talking about how blood magic can control people. Then we have lots of creature entries. We have an arcane horror. Upon ascending to the second floor of the tower, we were greeted by a gruesome sight, a ragged collection of bones wearing the robes of one of the senior enchanters. I had known her for years, watching her raise countless apprentices, and now she was a mere puppet for some demon. Transcribed from a tale told by a Templar and in Antiva City, 713 Storm Age. Demons, of course, have no form in our world. When they enter, either where the veil is particularly thin, or through blood magic summoning, they must take possession of a body. That's interesting. So demons have no form in the physical world. They have to take control of a body. But there are some demons, I remember there were some demons that don't need a body. I remember specifically reading about those. When a pride demon takes control of the corpse of a mage, an arcane horror is born. Although they appear to be little more than bones, these are fierce creatures, possessing not only all the spellcasting abilities of a living mage, but also the capacity to heal and even command other animated corpses. Wow. I think it was called a Fade Demon. A Fade Demon is the one that doesn't possess a physical form. Something like that, unless I misunderstood it. It was one of these that I've already read about. Shade. It's a shade. Yeah. Because we read about a shade at one point. But this is not always true. Right here it says, it is often suggested that the only way for a demon to affect the world of the living is by possessing a living or once living body. But this is not always true. Boom! We're breaking down big stuff here, guys. Those other guys don't know what they're talking about. We're keeping up with the lore. We read this stuff, so we know when somebody's lying. All right, Desire Demon. In all my studies, I must say that the most intriguing way was my interview. What? I must say that the most intriguing was my interview with the Desire Demon. That the creature was willing to speak with me was a sign that this was no mere monster, mindlessly driven by its nature, but rather a rational being, as interested in me as I was in it. It took a form that I would call female, though I had no doubt that it could appear otherwise. I wondered if it appeared as it did because I wanted it to, or because I expected it to. She, and indeed I could only think of her as such now, smiled warmly at me and laughed a musical sound that seemed to thrill my old heart. Oh boy, these desire demons are dangerous. So frightened was I of this creature's legendary abilities to twist the hearts of men, and so relieved was I when I looked across the table into her dark eyes. This was a fearsome creature of the Fade, but as I spoke with her I slowly came to realize that this demon was merely a misunderstood as we mages are ourselves. From the journal of former senior enchanter Malleus, once of the Circle of Vervain, declared apostate. Yes, I remember this guy. All of the threats from beyond the veil, few are more insidious and deceptively deadly than the Desire Demon. In folklore, such demons are characterized as peddlers of lust, luring their prey into a sexual encounter only to be slain at the culmination. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt that at all. While a desire demon can indeed deal in pleasure, in truth they deal with any manner of desire that humans can possess, whether it be wealth, power, and beauty, to name a few. Far more intelligent than the bestial hunger and rage demons, and more ambitious than the demons of sloth, these dark spirits are among the most skilled at tempting mages into possession. Many who serve the whims of a desire demon never realize it. They are manipulated by illusions and deceit, if not outright mind control. Although these demons are reluctant to resort to such crude measures, instead, they seem to take great pleasure in corruption. The greater the deceit, the greater their victory. Only demons of pride prove more fearsome opponents when aroused. When roused, I thought it said aroused. Okay, their abilities to affect the mind allow them to assume disguises and even alter the environment to their purposes, not to mention the great strength and speed they possess if they should have to resort to more physical means. Most often, a desire demon will attempt to bargain its way to freedom. If overpowered, many stories exist that depict mages defeating desire demons to the point where a wish can be wrested from them. It should be noted that in such stories, the demon almost always gets the upper hand, even when the mage thinks his wish has been granted. Wow. So desire demons are really very, very dangerous. They can lure men and possibly women that are also attracted to other female figures. Or, you know what? It's a desire demon, so I guess they could portray a very attractive man to a woman, or to another man that is attracted to men. So anything you desire, sexually, wealth, power, fame, these things are very dangerous because you're attracted to them. Most other things, like abomination demons, you're not attracted to them. You want to kill them as soon as you see them. But the desire demon can corrupt your mind and make you want them. That's dangerous. Okay, rage demon. These are the easier ones, the less powerful. Encountered in the Fade, the true form of a rage demon is a frightening sight, a thing of pure fire, its body seemingly made of amorphous lava, and its eyes two pinpricks of baleful light, radiating from its core. The abilities of such a demon center on the fire it generates. It burns those who come near, and the most powerful of its kind are able to lash out with bolts of fire and even firestorms that can affect entire areas. Fortunately, even powerful rage demons are less intelligent than the most other varieties. Their tactics are simple. Attack an enemy on sight with as much force as possible until it perishes. Some rage demons carry over their heat-based abilities into possessed hosts, but otherwise the true form is mostly seen outside of the Fade when it's specifically summoned by a mage to do his bidding. My goodness, these rage demons, they're powerful, but they're brute force. They're the weakest of the demons. And then we have the rat. um, what are you, mad? Even the most giant of rats isn't going to present that much of a problem to anyone larger than a cat. Even the stories in the archives that tell of blight-touched rats still only attribute them with the ability to spread the plague. The rats themselves got no larger than perhaps 3 feet in length, which is freaking huge, covered in sharp, bony spikes and boils. Disturbingly, certainly, but dangerous? Disturbing, certainly, but dangerous? This is no fantasy conjured by madmen, young man. You have much more important creatures to concern yourself with. Transcript of a lecture given by Nalia, senior enchanter of Hosberg, 844 blessed age. Note, she was later eaten by a blight rat. Oh man, that's funny. So she's like giving this lecture about how rats are not that big a deal, but then she was eaten by a blight rat 2 years later. Alright, skeletons. The demons of the Fade are jealous of the living beings that they sense from across the veil. They constantly push against the boundaries of the Fade, and when they finally cross over, they attempt to possess the first living creature they see. They are unable, however, to distinguish that which was once living from that which still is. In fact, a corpse provides an even more tempting target to a weaker demon, as it has no will with which to resist the possession. The demon cannot rationalize why this is so. It only sees a target and grasps at the opportunity. A skeleton is exactly that, a corpse animated by a possessing demon. Upon finding itself trapped within a body that cannot sustain it, the demon is driven insane. It seeks to destroy any life that it encounters, attacking without thought to its own welfare. The exact names of skeletons of this type vary according to the nature of the demon that possesses it. A fanged skeleton is a skeleton possessed by a hunger demon. These skeletons devour whatever life they encounter and often possess the ability to drain life energy and mana from their victims. A shambling skeleton is a slower moving skeleton possessed by a sloth demon, able to bring entropic powers against its opponents, slowing them and even putting them to sleep. More powerful demons had been known to command skeletons, but at that level they are known by other names, revenants and arcane horrors, to name 2. Interesting. So our creatures is almost all filled up. We've only got some here and there that need to be filled in. All right, magic and religion. We've got 4 of them, so we've got lots of lore. So the Fraternity of Enchanters. Okay, so what does the Fraternity of Enchanters say? Another aspect of circle life is the fraternity. When a mage becomes an enchanter, he may ally himself with a fraternity. These are cliques that cross circle boundaries, mages of common interests and goals who band together to ensure that their voice is heard within the College of Magi in Cumberland. The largest fraternities currently are the Loyalists, who advocate loyalty and obedience to the Chantry, the Aquatarians, who advocate temperance and follow a distinct code of conduct which they believe all mages should hold themselves to. The Libertarians, a growing fraternity publicly maintaining great power over the circles, but secretly advocating a complete split from the Chantry, a dangerous opinion, naturally. The Isolationists, a small group that advocates withdrawing to remote territories in order to avoid conflicts with the general populace. I mean, that kind of makes sense. The Lucrosians, who maintain that the circle must do what is profitable first and foremost. They prioritize the accumulation of wealth, with the gaining of political influence a close second. I don't know, that's scummy to me. So far, an alliance between the Loyalists and the Aquatarians has prevented the Libertarians from gaining much headway, but there are signs that the Aquatarians may throw their support in with the Libertarians. If that happens, many mages predict it will come to civil war against the circles. My goodness. From the Circle of the Magi, a history by first enchanter Josephinus. So there are different There are different fraternities, and these are the different fraternities. That's really interesting. Lyrium. Okay, this is interesting. I want to know about Lyrium. What the heck is Lyrium? More than half the wealth of Orzammar comes from a single, extremely rare substance, Lyrium. The Chantry believes it to be the waters of the Fade, mentioned in the Canticle of Threnodes, the very stuff of creation itself, from whence the Maker fashioned the world. Okay, so all of Thetis was actually created from Lyrium by the Maker, is what it sounds like. Only a handful of mining caste families hazard extracting the ore, finding veins in the stone quite literally by ear. For in its raw form Lyrium sings, and the discerning can hear the sound even through solid rock. Even though dwarves have a natural resistance, raw Lyrium is dangerous for all but the most experienced of the mining caste to handle. Even for dwarves, exposure to the unprocessed mineral can cause deafness or memory loss. For humans and elves, direct contact with lyrium ore produces nausea, blistering of the skin, and dementia. Mages cannot even approach unprocessed lyrium. Doing so is invariably fatal. Wow, mages can't approach it? Well, how have I been touching this lyrium? I've been just going around touching these lyrium veins, and it's been increasing all the way up my health, all the way to max. Despite its dangers, lyrium is the single most valuable mineral currently known. In the Tevinter Imperium, it has been known to command a higher price than diamond. The dwarves sell very little of the processed mineral to the surface, giving the greater portion of what they mine to their own smiths, who use it in the forging of all truly superior dwarven weapons and armor. What processed lyrium is sold on the surface goes only to the Chantry, who strictly controls the supply. From the Chantry it is dispensed both to the Templars, who make use of it in tracking and fighting Maleficarum, and to the Circle. Again, Maleficarum are mages that have defected, you could say. Um, in the hands of the Circle, lyrium reaches its... and not defected, I mean, Maleficarum would also be mages that use blood magic. In the hands of the Circle, lyrium reaches its fullest potential. Their Formari craftsmen transform it into an array of useful items, from the practicals such as magically hardened stone for construction to the legendary silver armor of King Calenhad. Alright, King Calenhad had silver armor made from lyrium. When mixed into liquid and ingested, lyrium allows mages to enter the Fade fully aware, unlike all others who reach it only while dreaming. Such potions can also be used to aid it in the casting of especially taxing spells, for a short time granting a mage far greater power than he normally wields. Lyrium has its costs, however. Prolonged use becomes addictive, the cravings unbearable. Over time, Templars grow disoriented, incapable of distinguishing memory from present, or dream from waking. They frequently become paranoid, as their worst memories and nightmares haunt their waking hours. Mages have additionally been known to suffer physical mutation. The Magister Lords of the Tevinter Imperium were widely reputed to have been so affected by their years of lyrium use that they could not be recognized by their own kin, nor even as creatures that had once been human. Wow. So it can totally drastically change your body if you get too addicted to it. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genetivi. Amazing. Beyond the Veil, Spirits and Demons. It is challenging enough for the casual observer to tell the difference between the Fade and the creatures that live within it, let alone between the type of spirit and another. In truth, there is little that distinguishes them, even for the most astute mages, since spirits are not physical entities and are therefore not restricted to recognizable forms, or even having a form at all. One can never tell for certain what is alive and what is merely part of the scenery. It is therefore advisable for the inexperienced researcher to greet all objects he encounters. Typically, we misuse the term spirit to refer only to the benign, or at least less malevolent, creatures of the Fade, but in truth, all of the denizens of the realm beyond the veil are spirits. As the Chant of Light notes, everything within the Fade is a mimicry of our world, a poor imitation, for the spirits do not remotely understand what they are copying. It is no surprise that much of the Fade appears like a manuscript translated from Tevinter into Orlesian and back again by drunken initiates. Okay, so the Fade is like sort of a bad mimicry of the real world. In general, spirits are not complex, or rather, they are not complex as we understand such things. Each one seizes upon a single facet of human experience: rage, hunger, compassion, hope, etc. This one idea becomes their identity. We classify as demons those spirits who identify themselves with darker human emotions and ideas. Oh, so it is possible that some spirits latch on to positive ideas. It's only a demon if the spirit identifies with darker human ideas and emotions. The most common and weakest form of demon one encounters in the Fade is the Rage Demon. They are much like perpetually boiling kettles, for they exist only to vent hatred, but rarely have an object to hate. Somewhat above these are the Hunger Demons. Actually, I remember reading this. Yes, interesting. Okay. And then finally, the Veil. I detest this notion that the Veil is some manner of invisible curtain that separates the world of the living from the world of spirits. Whether it be called the Fade or the Beyond is a matter of racial politics I refuse to indulge in at the moment. There is no this side and that side when it comes to the Veil. One cannot think of it as a physical thing or a barrier or even a shimmering wall of holy light. Thank you very much for that image, your perfection. Think of the Veil instead as opening one's eyes. Before you opened them, you saw our world as you see it now, static, solid, unchanging. Now that they are open, you see our world as the spirits sees it. Chaotic, ever-changing, a realm where the imagined and the remembered have as much substance as that which is real. More, in fact. A spirit sees everything as defined by will and memory, and this is why they are so very lost when they cross the veil. In our world, excuse me, in our world, imagination has no substance. Objects exist independently of how we remember them, or what emotions we associate with them. Mages alone possess the power to change the world with their minds, and perhaps this forms the nature of a demon's attraction to them. Who can say? Regardless, the act of passing through the veil is much more about changing one's perceptions than a physical transition. The veil is an idea. It is the act of transition itself. It is only the fact that both living beings and spirits find the transition difficult that gives the veil and any credulence as a physical barrier at all. From A Dissertation on the Fade as a Physical Manifestation by Morano, Senior Enchanter of the Minrathos Circle of Magi, 655 Steel Age. That's amazing. So really what he's saying is that the veil, it's not like it's here and then there. You know, it's not like you've transported to another universe. It's like the exact same universe. It's just you're looking at it in a different way. You're looking at it the way spirits look at it, rather than looking at it the way regular humans would look at it. That is really cool and interesting. I love to hear that. We've only got one here. We've got the Tevinter Imperium, but I did promise I would be reading Arlathan Part 1 and Part 2, because I skipped those, I believe. So the Tevinter Imperium. The Imperium is little more than a dilapidated old slattern, crouching in the far north of Thetis, drunkenly cursing at passerby to recall her faded beauty. That's so weird. One can see the Minrathos was once the center of the world. The vestiges of her power and artistry yet stand, but they are buried in the layers of filth that the Imperium's decadence has accumulated over the ages. The Magocracy live in an elegant stone towers, literally elevated above the stench of the slaves and peasants below. The outskirts of Minrathos are awash in a sea of refugees turned destitute by the never-ending war between the Imperium and the Kunari. And yet the Imperium survives. Whether with sword or magic, Tevinter remains a force to be reckoned with. Minrathos has been besieged by men, by Kunari, by Andraste herself, and never fallen. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genetivi. So Minrathos, it must be the city of the Imperium, and apparently there is a lot of um, just decrepit, um, destitute um, refugees and people that are just impoverished. That's what it sounds like. But, however, there is a magocracy, or the mages, that live in elegant stone towers that are elevated above everyone else. Well, that's our first impression of the Tevinter Imperium. A very old, it's a dilapidated old slattern, um, crouching in the far north. So, wow, that's interesting. It's just always been warring between Kunari, which I haven't been able to meet many Kunari yet, that I know of. But yeah. And then we have notes. Oh wait, no. Got to go back up to Arlathan. Now, Arlathan was kind of the location of the city of the elves, I believe. So this is like literally the very beginning of of civilization was Arlathan. Before the ages were named or numbered, our people were glorious and eternal and never changing. Oh, no. I have read this. Part 2 is what I haven't read. You asked what... Yeah, because in Part 1 we found out that Arlathan was destroyed. You know what? I'll read... It's a lore episode. I'll read it again to refresh my memory. Before the ages were named or numbered, our people were glorious and eternal and never changing. Like the great oak tree, they were constant in their traditions, strong in their roots, and ever reaching for the sky. They felt no need to rush when life was endless. They worshipped their gods for months at a time. Decisions came after decades of debate, and an introduction could last for years. I remember reading this. From time to time our ancestors would drift into centuries-long slumber, but this was not death, for we know they wandered the fade in dreams. In those ages, our people called all the land Elvenon, which in the old language means place of our people. And at the center of the world stood the great city of Arlathan, a place of knowledge and debate, where the best of the ancient elves would go to trade knowledge, greet old friends, and settle disputes that had gone on for millennia. But while our ancestors were caught up in the forever cycle of ages, drifting through life at what we today would consider an intolerable pace, the world outside the lush forests and ancient trees was changing. The humans first arrived from Parvalan to the north. Called Shemlin, or Quicklings, by the ancients, the humans were pitiful creatures whose lives blinked by in an instant. When they first met the elves, the humans were brash and warlike, quick to anger and quicker to fight, with no patience for the unhurried pace of elven diplomacy. But the humans brought worse things than war with them. Our ancestors proved susceptible to human diseases, and for the first time in history, elves died of natural causes. What's more, those elves who spent time bartering and negotiating with humans found themselves aging, tainted by the humans' brash and impatient lives. Many believed that the ancient gods had judged them unworthy of their long lives and cast them down among the Quicklings. Our ancestors came to look upon the humans as parasites, which I understand is similar to the way the humans see our people in the cities. The ancient elves immediately moved to close Elvenon off from the humans, for fear that this quickening effect would crumble the civilization. From the fall of Arlathan as told by Gisherel, keeper of the Relifaran clan of the Dalish Elves. And then part 2, you ask what happened to Arlathan? Sadly, we do not know. Even those of us who keep the ancient lore have no record of what truly happened. What we have are accounts of the days before the fall, and a fable of the whims of the gods. The human world was changing even as the elves slept. Clans and tribes gave way to a powerful empire called Tevinter, which, and for what reason we do not know, moved to conquer Elvenon. When they breached the great city of Arlathan, our people, fearful of disease and loss of immortality, chose to flee rather than fight. With magic, demons, and even dragons at their behest, the Tevinter Imperium marched easily through Arlathan, destroying homes and galleries and amphitheaters that had stood for ages. Our people were corralled as slaves, and human contact quickened their veins until every captured elf turned mortal. The elves called to the ancient gods, but there was no answer. Actually, I do remember reading this. Maybe I was mistaken thinking I didn't. Anyway, as to why the gods didn't answer, our people left only a legend. They say that Finn Harel, the Dread Wolf, the Lord of Tricksters, approached the ancient gods of good and evil and proposed a truce. The gods of good would remain themselves to heaven, and the lords of evil would exile themselves to the abyss, neither group ever again to enter the other's lands. But the gods did not know that Finn Harel had planned to betray them, and by the time they realized the Dreadwolf's treachery, they were sealed in their respective realms, never again to interact with the mortal world. It is a fable, to be sure, but these elves who travel the beyond claim that Finn Harel still roams the world of dreams, keeping watch over the gods lest they escape from their prisons. Whatever the case, Arlathan had fallen to the very humans our people had once considered mere pests. It is said that the Tevinter Magisters used their great destructive power to force the very ground to swallow Arlathan whole, destroying eons of collected knowledge, culture, and art. The whole of elven lore left only to memory. The fall of Arlathan as told by Gisharel, keeper of the Ralafaran clan of the Dalish Elves. Alright, so we've covered a lot of lore today. And in notes, we have a few notes. There's short ones, the black vials. Binding the first corpse walker. Let the dead no longer serve your whim. Bound by your true name, no mortal hand shall reach you. Kale Vyazagat, revenant and provision of an only son. Death beyond death is no longer your stopping stone through the veil. Andraste hold you, demon, and bind your rage for eternity. 6 thumbprints in blood mark the end of the text. This is very weird. The first corpse walker. That one was odd. I didn't quite understand it. Desire in need. Notice of censure. Templar Dras, your remarks in front of the recruits are only the latest in a series of troubling events. I am beginning to suspect that you may not be suited to the devotional needs of training. Devotional requirements of training. Perhaps it is time for a personal evaluation of your career path within the Templars. I will schedule some time after the current deployment to discuss options elsewhere in the organization. Oh man, he got in trouble. I wonder what he said in front of the other recruits. Attendant Sarand, assistant to the Knight Commander Grigor. A note is scribbled in the corner. Attendant who? Options? Code for dead-end duty on the Hedge Mage hunt in the Bannistor. This is weird. And the promise of pride. Uldred will show us the way. Finally, recognition within the circle and freedom from the scornful eye of the Templars. We will not be shunned. Be ready. Enchanter Gravid, Libertarian. Oh, he's part of one of the fraternities. I have spoken to him directly. His intentions are that we will demand the Templars withdraw. I don't know that I am willing to follow, but I will be present to hear his argument. Enchanter Fonst, Aquatarian. Madness. I doubt blood will be of use to you if it is flowing down the tower's steps. Step away from this folly before it consumes us all. Enchanter Louvain, the Loyalist. Wow. Okay, well we have covered a ton of lore today. That is all of the lore. We are all caught up, except there is one piece of lore right there, the Rite of Annulment. And we might as well finish that piece of lore. Okay, so there's the Fade portal, the Fade blah blah blah. Okay, so let's here, and magic and religion, the Rite of Annulment. In the 83rd year of the Glory Age, one of the mages of the Neveran, I'm gonna go with Neveran. One of the mages of the Neveran Circle was found practicing forbidden magic. The Templars executed him swiftly, but this brewed discontent among the Nevarra circle. The mages made several magical attacks against the Templars, vengeance for the executed mage, but the Knight Commander was unable to track down which were responsible. Wow, so many of the mages kind of struck back and said, hey, you can't do this to us. They struck back against the Templars. 3 months later, the mages summoned a demon and turned it loose against their Templar watchers. Demons, however, are not easily controlled. After killing the first wave of Templars who tried to contain it, the demon took possession of one of its summoners. The resulting abomination slaughtered Templars and mages both before escaping into the countryside. Oh goodness. The Grand Cleric sent a legion of Templars to hunt the fugitive. They killed the abomination a year later, but by that time it had slain 70 people. Divine Galatea, responding to the catastrophe in Nevarra, and hoping to prevent further incidents, granted all the Grand Clerics of the Chantry the power to purge a circle entirely if they rule it irredeemable. This rite of annulment has been performed 17 times. 17 times in the last 700 years. From the Fires, Circles, and Templars, A History of Magic in the Chantry by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. So it is more rare, but because 700 years is a very long time, but 17 times is not infrequent. That's like at least once every 50 years. That's kind of a lot of times. Yeah, I guess that is kind of a lot. I mean, that's at least once every 50 years. That's nuts. Okay, so there we go. Alright, so we have finished our lore episode. We've caught up on everything that was in the codex, and we learned a lot more about so many different things. We learned about the Fade. I thought knowing the boundary between the Fade, between reality and the Fade realm, it was very interesting. We learned about, bunch of different stuff, histories, the Rite of Annulment, and why it was performed originally. We learned about culture and history. We went back over Arlathan and how that was formed. We learned about Tevinter and about how it's actually really dilapidated and kind of crappy, but there is a Tower of Mages that preside over it. So much good stuff that we learned today. So yeah, next episode we're going to continue on with our movement through this tower and hopefully get to the top. So thank you for joining me for this lore episode, and I will see you next time.